So in this video, we're going to talk about marginal cost. But before we do marginal cost, we're going to start with actual cost. So marginal cost, we use the derivative to find out exactly what the approximate cost is for one more unit. So we're going to start with the cost of manufacturing a robot watch, and it can be modeled by this function. So we want to find the cost to produce the 10th unit. So if you think about it this way, the cost of 0 units, that would give us 0 units. If we want 1 unit, right, that's the cost of 1. If we plug that in, it tells us the cost to make 1 unit. And if you plug in C of 2, it tells us the total cost for 2 units. So if I were to subtract those two, that would tell us the cost of the second unit. So if we take C2, which is the total cost for 2 units, and subtract C1, it would tell us the cost of the second unit. And so if I do the total cost for 3 units, it would tell us the cost of the third unit if I subtract the cost of 2 units. So the total cost of making 3 units, subtracting the total cost of making 2 units, that would give us the third. So you notice to find the third, we need C of 3 minus C of 2. So to find the 10th, we're going to do the total cost to make 10 units and subtract the total cost to make 9 units, and that would tell us the cost of the 10th unit. Okay, so the way you want to do this very quickly is you take your calculator, you plug the function in, you go to Window, and you plug in 0 and then something that would include these numbers, like 0 and 20. If you hit Zoom Fit, it will then graph it between that 0 and 20 in a nice clean little window. So now we can find the cost of any value in here. So if I hit trace and 10, that's my cost for 10 units, so 54.20. And if I hit trace 9, it tells me my cost for 9 units, 53.42. And so looking at the calculator also tells you everything. So that is all of the costs in here to create it. So that's first cost, second cost, third cost. It's the difference between each of these that's telling us the cost of each unit. So from here to here, that's the total cost of 9 units. That's the total cost to make 10 units. And so if I subtract those two, it tells me the cost of that 10th unit from here to here. So that would become, let's plug that in our calculator just so you can see it. 54.20 minus 53.42 gives us 78. So the 10th unit cost 78, and we're going to assume this is in dollars. So now what we're going to do is find the marginal cost. So C prime of x would be, and this is 4x squared plus 2x plus 5,000. Sorry, I have to make these quickly. So this is 8x plus 2. And so there's our marginal cost function. And so now if we plug in any number, it'll tell us the cost of that amount. And so we want to find the cost to make the 10th unit. So what we're going to do is plug in actually 9. And I'll explain that in a minute. So if we plug in 9, we get 72 plus 2 is $74, which is a pretty close guess. $74 is our marginal cost. So why do we plug in 9? Well, let's look at it in Desmos. So the red line represents our derivative, and the black line is our actual function. So you can see we went from 900, so at 9 it was 53.42, and there's our 10 of 54.20, which is a difference of 78. So it increased 78 for that 1 unit. So the 10th unit cost $78. So now it's the same idea here, but with our derivative is giving us the slope of the line. So at 9 is where we have to start to see what it costs for the 10th unit. See, if you put what it is actually for C prime, this is $74 per unit. So if we're at 9, then we know it's going to go up $74 for 1 unit to get to 10. And so like we did before, remember, this is the cost at 9, this is the cost at 10. So subtracting those would give us our 10th unit. So when you're using a derivative, you've got to plug in the number before to approximate the next one. So if we want the 10th unit, we use 9. So what does C prime of 100 tell us? It tells us the marginal cost, the approximate cost for the 101st unit, because again, we're at 100, so our derivative at 100 says we're going to go up a certain amount. It's going to go C prime of 100 over 1 to get to the 101st unit, so that would be the 101st unit's cost. So you always plug the number in before with the derivative to tell us what the next value would be.